Hi guys, my name's Adam and welcome to my new video. Today I'm gonna be talking about iPad again, so that's why I'm having my 11-inch iPad Pro here. A big question has arisen lately. Can iPad actually replace your computer? A lot of people are about to upgrade their laptops, and companies like Apple and Microsoft are constantly showing them that they can use their tablets as a main computer. But is it actually true? I personally have been using iPads for almost 10 years now, and there's been many situations when iPad was my only computer for a longer period of time. So today I'm gonna try to explain to you what are the advantages and possible downsides of using iPad as your primary computer. So enjoy this video, and here we go. I started working on this video a couple of days ago, and in the middle of it Apple just dropped the new 2020 iPad Pro with its new Magic Keyboard and trackpad, which is a total game changer for the iPad. But I'm gonna make a separate video about the new iPad Pro for sure, so stay tuned for that. I believe all of you know what iPad is. It's Apple's own tablet, which was originally released all the way back in 2010. And back then, it was meant to be used mostly for media consumption, not for serious work. But as the years went by, Apple has been releasing new model by model, each just pushing the limit even further, and adding more and more features to the iPad. And in 2015, Apple introduced the very first iPad Pro, the iPad which was finally aimed to creators and professionals. And now when Apple introduced the 2020 iPad Pro with better mouse support, the differentiating line between a MacBook and iPad is even thinner than ever before. So can you actually use the iPad as a replacement to your laptop? Let's see. If you are considering buying an iPad as your primary computing device, then you first need to ask yourself the big question: what are you doing on your computer? 1,000 people uses their computer 1,000 different ways, so you need to find out which tasks you will be doing the most. You need to determine if you're a light user, which means you use your computer to browse the web, watch videos, use social media, do some emails, and maybe a little bit of gaming. Maybe you're a more advanced user, who needs to create documents and spreadsheets often, and edit photos and videos, and maybe even draw on your tablet. And maybe you're a professional who uses specialized software for work, or you need to write a code, test apps, use virtualization software, etc. etc. So by now you should have a pretty good idea what type of user you are out of these three categories. And now I can show you what iPad can and cannot do, so you can find out if it's the computer you were waiting for, or if it's not the best device for your specific needs. When you're considering buying an iPad as a computer replacement, then you definitely need to think about purchasing some accessories for it. The main one is keyboard. Even the lightest of a user will appreciate a keyboard for their iPad. It's probably the most essential accessory to a computer. Of course, you can use an iPad without a physical keyboard and rely mainly on a software one, which is actually one of the best software keyboards. But if you do that, then the iPad will never be as good as your laptop, because every user needs to type something now and then, and the software keyboard takes a huge amount of screen estate, and you can never type on it as accurately as on a physical one. I use the Apple Smart Keyboard Folio, and I plan to upgrade to the newly introduced Magic Keyboard with a trackpad. But of course there are many different keyboards from third-party manufacturers, so you can choose the one which will suit you the best. The second accessory you should probably buy is a wireless mouse. Apple introduced the mouse support to the iPad for the very first time as an accessibility feature in the iOS 13, And in the latest iOS 13.4, they surprised everyone and added a much deeper mouse integration, so it's now really easy to use your iPad with a mouse. If you plan to buy a new Magic Keyboard for your iPad, then you could probably get by with using the trackpad on it. But of course, you can connect any other wireless mouse of your choice. iPad is mainly a touch device, but you can get a much higher level of precision with a mouse, for example when selecting a text or navigating through a big spreadsheet. And the third accessory I would recommend you to consider buying is the Apple Pencil. Unlike the mouse and keyboard, this one is actually an iPad exclusive, as you're not able to use it with your traditional laptop. Apple Pencil is a fantastic tool for creative people, and in my opinion, it's the best drawing tool on the market. With the Apple Pencil, your iPad actually feels like a piece of paper, and you can do some pretty wild things with it. But it's not useful just for drawing. You can use it to annotate documents, for highlighting, or even as a mouse replacement for precision editing in apps like Photoshop. It's really great, but I believe, unlike the keyboard and mouse, it's not for everybody. But creative souls can do wonderful things with the Apple Pencil. So now we know which accessory we should buy, and we can take a look at iPad itself. With the keyboard and mouse, it almost looks the same as any other Ultrabook or convertible on the market, but it's not. And the main difference between the iPad and, for example, the Microsoft Surface lineup is the OS. The iPad runs iPad OS, which is an advanced version of iOS. It doesn't run a full desktop operating system, and you can take it as an advantage or downside. It depends how you look at it. iPadOS is a mobile operating system. It's very different from a full macOS or Windows. It's much more simplistic. The main thing is the home screen with a bunch of app icons. Then you have your widgets on the left side with additional information from your apps. And you have a dock with all your favorite apps at the bottom of the screen. You can get to your notifications by swiping down from the middle, access a control center by swiping from the right up corner, and enter your Open App switcher by swiping up from the bottom. You can also work with multiple windows. You can split your screen between two windows, or you can use Slide Over to get a quick peek at some app of yours. And that's basically it. Like I said, iPad is a very minimalistic device, and anybody can learn how to use it in just a couple of minutes. That's the beauty of it. I realized that it makes me focus more on one or two tasks at most, but when I'm on my Mac, I have thousands of windows opened, and sometimes it's just a mess. And somehow that doesn't happen on my iPad. So if you like easy to use, straightforward device, that's the iPad. But if you prefer to have a tons of windows opened at the same time, and you maybe use more than one screen setup, then iPad might not improve your productivity. With iPad, it's all about apps. And the App Store is the only place you can install your software from, at least officially. And that could be a problem for some people. Well, I get it. I could not imagine a world where I could only install my Mac apps from the Mac App Store. I have like 30 apps installed on my Mac, and only like 6 or 7 of them are actually from the App Store. But to be honest, Mac App Store and the iPad App Store are two completely different worlds. On the iPad App Store, you get hundreds of thousands of apps for almost anything you can imagine. And unlike the Windows Store, Google Play Store, or even a Mac App Store, the quality of the iPad apps is actually pretty damn good. You can find anything from word processing software, photo and video editing apps, magazines and newspapers, to business apps, social network apps, and even a huge amount of high-quality games from worldwide known developers. The selection of the apps for the iPad is really great, and you can find an app for almost anything. And I put emphasis to almost, because there are still some tasks that you simply can't do on your iPad. You can't do serious coding. There are some apps, but there's nothing like an Xcode, for example, at least not just yet. And there are also no virtualization software, and that's understandable, because it's limited by the iPad hardware. So if you're a light or medium user, don't be scared of iPad. You can get Office from Microsoft on it, you can get Photoshop or even some better alternatives of it. You can seriously edit videos in apps like LumaFusion, and you can even play high-intensive games ported from a PC, like for example Civilization or GTA. But if you're a heavy user that needs to work in specialized desktop apps, then the iPad is probably not the device for you. As I was making this video, I realized just how much the iPad has evolved over the past few years. Just a couple of years ago, I used my iPad almost exclusively to watch YouTube videos, to play lightweight games, and to browse the web and social media. If I wanted to do anything more demanding, then I needed to use my desktop computer. But today, I can imagine not having a desktop or laptop at all and rely only on the iPad. If I was ever to switch only to the iPad, I would choose the 12.9-inch instead of my current 11-inch, because the 12.9 is really the closest you can get to a laptop experience. You know, a lot of current YouTubers and reviewers agree that you can do almost anything on your iPad, but they almost always add that you can do the same things quicker on your standard PC or Mac. And I believe that's not the case for all of us. I think that a lot of us, and by that I mean like people 25 plus, are used to using a desktop operating system since we were kids, and it's really hard for us to adapt to a new way of interacting with our computers. I am from a generation of geeky Windows XP users who used to create a big library of folders and files and customize every bit of their OS and tweak almost anything. But as I got older, I started to really appreciate the way Apple does things. You don't have to think about anything because it just works. And if you give your iPad to today's kids, you will see that they will have no problems doing anything on it, and they will get things done much quicker than you would ever do. And that's because they're not chained by our outdated way of thinking about PC and technology in general. And the way iPad does it is the most natural thing for them. So guys, can the iPad actually replace your computer? Well, in my opinion, for 90% of users, it definitely can, because it can do the same things you do on your laptop. But why would you want to use an iPad instead of a Mac? The price of a basic MacBook Air and the iPad Pro 12.9-inch is basically almost the same, so why iPad instead of a Mac? Well, first, it's much more portable. You can take it with you anywhere you go, it's thin and light. MacBook is also thin and light, but not on the iPad level. iPad is also always on, no need to putting it to sleep or turning it off like your laptop. And it does support cellular networks, so you can use your SIM card with the iPad and be online anywhere you go. You also get a slightly better battery life and a much better standby time on the iPad. And you actually have more input options with the iPad. You can use your fingers and touch the screen. You can attach a keyboard. You can now even get advantage of a full mouse support or use Apple Pencil to draw, annotate and other things. iPadOS is also more user-friendly than Windows or macOS. So if you, for example, plan to buy a device for your kids or parents and grandparents, then the iPad is a best buy for them. But there are some buts. Maybe you're one of those 10% of users who just need more than the iPad can currently offer. Maybe you have a job that requires you to use a specialized software that is not available for the iPad. Or maybe you're a software developer and you can't write a code and test your apps on the iPad. Or you just need a massive amount of performance for your work that even a powerful CPU in the iPad cannot offer. In these cases, iPad is a very good addition to your PC or Mac, but not a computer replacement for you. But I believe that for 90% of people, the iPad can replace their laptops, and it would actually be an upgrade for them. All iPads Apple is selling nowadays are really powerful, have great screens, fantastic build quality, great older battery life, and most importantly, they run the iPad OS. which is honestly the biggest advantage of the iPad, which was mocked and laughed at 10 years ago, and people were saying it's just a blown-up iPhone. Well, not anymore. iPad can do tons of things the iPhone doesn't, and it's closer to a standard PC or Mac than ever before, while keeping the simplicity of the whole system. If Apple keeps their focus on the iPad, then I believe that in a few years only professionals will use Macs and PCs, and every other user will use the iPad, which will be able to do the same things as a Mac or PC, but in a much simpler way. I really love my MacBook, but at the same time I'm so excited about the future of the iPad. I think Apple created something special, which even they did not anticipate. So that's it for today's video. How do you feel about the iPad? Do you think it could actually replace your computer or not? Let me know in the comment section, and of course, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing for more videos like this, it helps me a lot. I have a lot of cool ideas for next videos coming up, so stay tuned. Have a great day and see you next time. Bye!